After posting a reel every day for 6 months to my Instagram account, I learned pretty quickly what was working and what wasn't. Now, this is from personal experience, but having said that, these points are things that I've heard from content creators time and time again in terms of what really doesn't work on Instagram Reels. So in today's video, I'm going to reinforce some of these points, and I'm going to be telling you some of the mistakes that you may be making with your Instagram Reels. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Kaylee June, and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based near Sydney, Australia, but I'm also a content creator, and recently I started this channel in the last couple of years to talk about all things social media, content creation, and freelancing wise. And as I mentioned, in today's video, we're going to be chatting about some of the mistakes you might be making with Instagram Reels. And we're going to get straight into it, so let's talk about mistake number one. So the number one mistake that I have found that people make with Reels on Instagram is that they are too long. Now, obviously this point is going to depend on what kind of content you make, who you are as a content creator, what your cause is, what your genre is. This is really going to make a difference in some of these points I'll talk about today. But one thing that I've found even still is if you make a reel that is too long, most of the time it's not going to do too well on the platform. Now, I think making a longer reel every now and then is okay, and I think that's good, and depending on what genre you're in, you may need to do them more often than other people, but I do find that there's a bit of a cutoff in terms of how many eyes really get onto your work with Reels, and the cutoff that I was finding that was 9 seconds. I didn't post many Reels above 9 seconds from the time that I actually realized that my longer Reels past that point were not doing well. Some people will say between about 7 and 8 seconds is the cutoff, but I've usually stuck to around 9 to 10, and I seem to get pretty good traction with that kind of length of time. But anywhere past about 9 seconds, people's attention spans on Instagram are really quite short these days, and they will get very bored and they will swipe. So I really do recommend keeping your Reels to a time frame of around 9 seconds or less, and keeping them quite short and snappy. As I mentioned, attention spans these days with a lot of short form content have just gone to such a small extent, so make sure you keep that in mind when you're creating your Reels, and don't make too many lengthy Reels that will really lose people's attention where they're just going to swipe away immediately. The second mistake you may be making with Instagram Reels is applying a filter. Now, coming from a photographer's standpoint and also semi-videographer, but there is something so soul-crushing about seeing filters applied to certain Reels where the quality just looks really atrocious. And unfortunately, Instagram's filter system is really not the same as adding like a filter in Lightroom or adding a filter in Premiere Pro or anything like that. So I do find that it lowers the quality of the reel drastically. And I would say to anyone who adds filters to their Reels, for the most part, I feel that it's really best to just leave your Reels even completely alone with no coloring, no filter applied in the Instagram app. It really can degrade the quality of the Reels that you're posting. So I really try and stay away from them, and I don't even use them anymore on my work. If I really wanted to color grade my Reels or really kind of give it that extra effect, I would put them into Premiere Pro because that has a bit more of a professional color grading system, and you can render the video out at quite a good quality. So I would recommend, if you really do want to add those filters, you want to add some tones to your work in that way, maybe look at Premiere Pro, more of a professional editing software. Don't add them in the Instagram app because they really do degrade the quality of the Reels. Mistake number 3 is shaky or poor quality footage. Now, I really want to emphasize shaky because I do see this a lot on Instagram. A lot of people do tend to upload very shaky footage, and this can really put people off watching the reel immediately. It's one of those things that can be pretty easily corrected, especially if you've got, say, a selfie stick attached to your phone, or something that you can help to easily pan with if you've got a moving shot, or even just using your hands and just being more mindful of that when you're taking the video on your phone. I really find helps in terms of that shakiness. A lot of smartphones these days do have some sort of inbuilt stabilization that can make it a little bit better. So you just kind of need to take advantage of that, or just remind yourself to be a little bit more steadier if you are taking those reels with your phone, because the shaky footage will really turn people off, I find, immediately. That also goes for poor quality footage. So just make sure that when you are filming your reels, that you're filming at the correct kind of specifications or the minimum standards for that, which is going to be 1080p or 1920 by 1080. 1080p, which is high definition, or HD, which Instagram accepts. So make sure that your minimum filming specs are matching that. Now, the fourth mistake is something that I feel like a lot of people might not actually think about when they're creating a reel, but I actually feel like it's a bit of a mistake to not either include a call to action or to include text. Now, the call to action can be within the caption, but I do find that more often than not, adding some sort of text to the reel really helps people engage with it. Some pretty aesthetic reels can kind of work without the text, I find, but if you're just posting a reel to your account with no text or anything on it, people are obviously just seeing those moving images, and quite often you'll be wondering what the reel is actually about, or why should you kind of care, or is there any sort of underlying story behind it? And I feel it's really important for reels, and especially with short attention spans these days, to really grab people's attention with using a bit of text. So whether that's putting an inspirational quote into the reel if it's more of an aesthetic kind of reel, or giving a bit of a brief backstory on the reel, maybe you want to use a hook in the text, which is a really good way to get people to engage with the reel as well, or to follow through with that call to action in the caption. Or even if you're stuck for ideas, for example, if you do content creation for travel content like me, sometimes I'll just do a POV, and that means point of view, and you're doing something XYZ. Whatever is relating to the reel, just to let people see that reel through their eyes for a second, and it becomes a little bit more of a deeper meaning behind it. It's definitely something that I would integrate into most of my reels and really not forget about doing that, because it can be the main reason why people may swipe away, or whether they might engage with the reel or save it for later. And mistake number 5 is a lack of trending audio. Now, I'm a firm believer that you don't need to use trending audio for every reel that you post. I think you should have a little bit of a mixture of content, and you really should be able to think outside of the box and do what you want to do. As a creator, it's important to have that little bit more freedom with what you're creating. So I do think that it's fine to have audio from time to time that's not trending and have a bit of a mix. But to not have any trending audio could be kind of a surefire way to not get that reach that you might want. And it does tend to be something a lot of the time, I feel, where it does make people stop and actually watch your reel if they hear that trending audio, especially if it's a really, really popular one at the time. It's just another way to get that reach on your account if you're finding that you're not getting a lot of it and you're not getting a lot of eyes on your work and on your reels. So I do think that trending audio is important, and the way that I tend to find my trending audio is I actually just take 10 minutes a day to scroll through reels and go through my For You page, kind of go through and see what people are using, and if it's got the arrow next to it, it means that it's currently trending. I tend to use trending audio though that sits around between about 1,000 plays and 10,000 plays. I like to kind of get it when it's still on the way up, and that could really improve your reach and improve those impressions even more on your work. And I'm just going to add a bonus mistake in here, and it's something that I do find happens regularly, whether it's with reels or whether it's with carousels or other posts, is that the captions themselves are left unfilled, or there's really not a lot of content in there at all. And I do feel that captions are actually really important, and they're one of the things I felt that really changed the traction that I had going on my reels and on my Instagram account. I started to create more engaging captions when I felt that my subscriber count was kind of flatlining for a while there, and I still had been posting a reel every day. One thing that I did to kind of build a little bit more engagement was to actually write engaging captions, and it really does make a difference in terms of whether people will engage with your posts or not. So it's something that I really think that everyone should consider doing a lot more of. And although I hate the process sometimes of writing out captions, or if I'm tired and I don't really know what to write and I don't know where to start, it does happen pretty regularly. But at the same time, I know that it's worth it in the end, because it can be a really, really big factor for engagement on Instagram, and it's something that is really important. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video today, and I hope you learned something new. Let me know if you think that there's any mistakes that people make with posting reels and creating reels, because I'd love to hear them down in the comments section below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, make sure that you do, because I'll be posting lots more content like this in future. Let me know how your Instagram accounts are currently tracking down in the comments section as well. I always love hearing updates from you guys in terms of how your general traction is going on your accounts on Instagram. I really love to hear if anyone's growing or if anyone's having issues. Feel free to put it all in the comments section below. But thank you all so much for watching this video again, and I'll see you in the next one.